This is your host with the most, JJ from JJ Meets World, the podcast that aims to introduce every single person on the planet Earth to me, JJ Gordon. We get a chance to revive the art of conversation, and this episode, oh, you're in for a doozy. Not only are we going to have a great conversation with Fish, owner and proprietor of the Fargo Escape Room, and find out everything that it takes to get an escape room up and running, but I'm also going to give you my secrets to moving success. All of this and so much more on today's episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
There are these weird micro teams that we establish every single day. And inside of those teams, you usually have a leader and you have followers and you have people who excel in certain roles. Your friend groups probably contain a lot of that. And sometimes you get too many of one type within a single group. I'm going to talk about a group that I was with yesterday that was probably the most efficient type of this group I've ever been a part of. I helped a friend move. Now, moving a friend is a prerequisite to being part of that relationship. It's a big deal when a friend asks you to help them move because you've cemented the fact that you are now friendly enough with them that you will probably see their underpants. And I think that that's a pretty big deal, and it makes you very vulnerable. So I'm helping a friend move, and for the first time in, I think, the history of me helping people move, all the roles were filled, and nobody tried to step on anybody else's role. And within an hour, we had moved a 2-bedroom apartment, about 10 blocks away. It was wow. I mean, it was nothing short of magic. I thought that it was just, it could not have been better. And there was nobody who was involved in this move who did the whole like, oh God, I gotta just sit down for a couple of minutes and, I gotta rest on this thing when you're in the heat of the move. And it was beautiful. It was like a symphony of moving, a symphony of boxes. One thing that really helped was she was ready to go when we got there. So it's not like she was still packing when we arrived.
That is huge.
That is a massive piece of the move on the day when you bring in all of the muscle and all of the vehicles. Also, I've now arrived at the age where I actually have multiple friends who have minivans. And so minivans make moving really easy because they've got so much storage in the back.
Nope.
So what am I getting at here? I'm getting at sometimes you need to look at the team you've put together and figure out what's missing or what needs to be exercised out of it.
JJ, when you're doing these moves, what sort of, when the moves do involve a team where people start to assume roles, what role do you typically assume?
So I think I excel at packing, like putting everything into a U-Haul and maximizing
loading.
Space. Yeah. So that is where I am definitely at. I am also really good at assigning roles to other people. So kind of like a manager in a way where I can be like, listen, we don't need you running in and out. We need you telling people where to put these things. So you station yourself by the front. You two guys, let's get you working on getting that bed frame out of here because that's going to take longer than everything else. And then we can put the bed on top of the stuff that we're doing right here. I also am the guy who shows up with gloves and ratchet straps. So, I mean, I guess equipment manager and spatial organization is maybe my two main keys. And the thing that drives me nuts are the people who kind of ram jam stuff in and just kind of like, oh, well, we'll just get it in there and then, we'll make sense of it once it gets over. Like, no. Listen, if we can pack this thing, if we're efficient, we can pack it where the bedroom isn't at the back, and then we move room by room, so everyone's not kind of going all over the place. They're moving the entire living room in, and then they move the entire bedroom in, and then they move the entire utility room in. And those are the moves I love to be a part of.
Yeah, you always need to keep in mind the unloading procedure, and in what order will these be unloaded as well.
And yeah, because if you've got, let's say you put all the furniture in the back and then all the boxes. Well, if you get all the boxes in, now all of a sudden you don't have really space for the furniture, right? If you put the furniture in, you can put boxes on top of the furniture. These are simple things I've learned, and I've probably helped people move, no joke, 60 times. I mean, that's probably my gauge. I've probably helped people move their entire collection of things in their life 60 times.
And about 40 of those times were me.
Yeah. I in fact, I know a good Tucker move is going to involve the teal tubs.
Yep.
And
still have those.
And like either the coldest day of the year or the hottest, one or the other,
or inclement weather of some kind.
Mm-hmm. But you know what's nice about you, Tucker, is you're not a gentleman who has a lot of things. I don't ever feel like material possessions have ever been a real piece of baggage in your life. I mean, you've got tubs full of things like comic books, which are great, but it's not like I'm moving 10 antique dining room tables for you, and then a chest of drawers that you use to store all of the juggling equipment you bought in 2005.
Right.
So I appreciate that as someone who helps you move. And also, I think you've gotten to the point of where you're smart of saying, like, listen, I'm not going to move this all in the back of my vehicle. I'm going to get people with trucks. I'm going to get people with trailers, and let's just get this thing going. The mythical one trip is the thing with moving that I always gear myself towards.
You mean when someone's like, oh, we can get this done in one trip, when they say it like that? And that's just like, I'll be there in a minute. And you're like, you mean you'll be here in 30?
Like, I always think, like, wouldn't it be great if we could make it in one trip? But inevitably, people have... Here's what I think is messed up. As a culture, we seem to take more from buffets than we can actually eat. But then when it comes to moving our possessions, we never, ever get more space than we need for the move.
Right.
We're just bad at it.
I've always taken moving as an opportunity to get rid of stuff too, just in general. Like before I'm going to move, I try to see what I can just purge. And if you can purge most of your stuff, that's going to make the move a lot easier.
Oh God, isn't it just great? And not only that, but you get a good chance to say, like, who am I right now? And, am I still the person who needs this? In fact, recently I just found from a move a long time ago when I stored some stuff in my mom's crawl space, now my home. It was a big cardboard tube filled with posters. And one of the posters was Arrested Development. Another one was Curb Your Enthusiasm. And then I found a poster from when we made the short film Cinderella that is in the back of my so it's the where he's in front of the Colony Bar, which is down in Miami Beach. It just is ridiculous. So I think I'm going to take a high res photo of it and then I don't need a giant. I mean, this thing has got to be 5 feet long by 3 feet tall. Just ridiculous. But maybe what I should do is I should reach out to our guest today, Eric Ista, aka Fish, who runs the Fargo Escape Room. We get a very detailed behind the curtain look at what it takes to make an escape room. And I am just absolutely over the moon about this episode because it's everything you want to know about an escape room, but we're too afraid to ask. And then Fish, of course, has been just a namesake in our community and has done some great stuff over the years. In fact, I think one of the first film projects I ever worked on, Fish was cool enough to hook us up with some equipment for it from way back in the day. And so this is a lot of fun to get this, and I guarantee by the end of this episode you're going to be itching for an escape room experience. Oh yeah. So without further ado, let's kick off this episode of JJ Meets World with our good buddy Fish.
JJ Meets World.
And Fish, tell us a little bit about who you are.
All right. Well, real name is Eric Ista. But yeah, I got the nickname Fish when I started in advertising way back in the mid to late 90s, 97 to be exact, is when I first acquired my nickname. Yeah, I was in advertising for good 20 years and then started up Fargo Escape Room and decided to ditch the ad world and start doing that full time.
Where did Fish come from? Just out of curiosity.
So I used to have all sorts of kind of made up stories. Like I'd tell people I had a severe drinking problem, and that brought the conversation to like a screeching halt right away. Others were like, "Oh, I have a a tattoo of Abe Vigoda on my lower back," for the Barney Miller fans out there. But really, it came from my one of my first bosses at Sharpener Hovland Advertising, Al Hovland, who has since passed. Rest in peace, Al. But he was notorious for giving people nicknames, and I used to wear this little lucky fish charm necklace that I got on a trip to Washington D.C. one time. Wore it all the time, and Al picked up on that and started referring to me as any type of fish name you can imagine. It was flounder, sea bass, guppy, but ultimately Fish was the one that stuck. And now more people know me as Fish than they do Eric. Usually just family that calls me Eric.
So, like you really know who that person is trying to approach you at that point. I only have two people in my life who call me by my given first name. And one of them is my aunt, Ginny. Everyone calls her Ginny, but to get back at her, I call her Virginia. Just to even the playing field a little bit.
Right.
So we'll talk about advertising a little bit, but let's dive into the Fargo Escape Room a little bit to start with.
Sure.
So what makes you decide to get into the exciting world of escape rooms?
So a friend of mine, so I don't know if you guys know Matt Charpentier, been a good friend of mine for many, many years. And his mom was actually the one that hired me. So, but Matt he was living in Denver and had gone to an escape room there, and he was in town visiting, and he and I went out for some drinks, and he's telling me all about this thing. And before he was even done with the story, I'm like, oh my God, I got to open one of these things. And I thought I should probably try one first. So, a group of us had gone to, when I was still working at Sundog, had gone to Denver for a business trip and found an escape room there and signed everybody up for it that was on the trip and didn't really tell them much about it. And actually, Jason Jacobson was there too. And went through it, and it was kind of a mediocre one. Not much of a story, anything like that, but we had a blast. And so after that, I was like, that's it. I got to open this. And so me and three other friends decided to pool our resources and start the Fargo Escape Room. So yeah, I started with one room, and then about a month later opened up a second one. So that was in 19. We've been around for 50 years. 2015. So this is our fifth year. So since then, the other three partners have since gone on to other things. So I'm the last man standing.
I participated. I mean, here's the thing. When you first opened, it was like impossible to get one of the time slots because this was the hottest thing in town.
Yeah.
So much so that other people thought they would piggyback on the same idea and be like, well, I could do it. And then they opened up their own that to a lesser quality and extent.
That's how a lot of escape rooms open as you go through. It's like, I want to do this. And it looks so easy. And then you do it. And it's like, holy crap, there's a lot that you have to figure out.
Well, for starters, you've got to figure out a story. That's the thing about it, is it's interactive storytelling. And I've been to a couple that are the most boring idea. They pretty much were like, okay, well, I'll take the idea from one of the crappy Mission Impossible movies and try and shove it into this room.
Yeah.
And people, and even like what drives me wild in an escape room is when there's no thought into the clues or the MacGuffins, where they're just sort of shoving some stuff in there. They're like, well, we're going to include a clue board in this room just to throw people off, and be like, well, it doesn't make sense. I'm in a mafia master's office and he's got a clue board.
Right.
There's not even blood on the clue board. What's going on? But I participated with like 5 other people in your escape room like a month after you guys opened. That was the soonest we could get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned quickly that not everyone in a room can be an alpha because man, oh man, did we have a lot of essentially we had 5 groups all trying to solve different rooms at the same exact time. But we ended up getting out, and my team was the one who like figured out this it was a code with some birds.
Oh yes, yeah. Oh,
yeah,
the bird one.
I felt very proud of that. That
Nice.
everyone else was failing. They were concentrating on like a Scrabble game and something else that was in the room. So how do you go about creating the story of a room?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's usually where we start. Is what we've figured out is that if you have a compelling reason as to why you're getting locked in a room, and just as compelling a reason as to why you need to get out of it, the rest kind of falls into place. And so it's really that beginning and end. It could be kind of loose even, but it's got to be there, right? Otherwise, it's like, oh, the door's locked, and here you go. Here's some locks and some things on paper to figure out. Those are the dull ones. But if you have that little nugget of a story in somebody's head, that's the payoff there, because then you can start to build on that sort of world that you're creating. And so like with us too, all of our stories, every one of our rooms all tie together. So that's more just for us and for kind of like the super fans, those that, really want to come and do all of the rooms. So you have reoccurring characters. It's kind of our own little, dollar store Marvel universe that we've created, because we have like this, the good guys and the bad guys, and we have different groups like CATS. That's CATS. It's kind of our CIA sort of agency in there, and it all takes place in Hintsville. So the school is Hintsville High. There's a restaurant one now that our newest one, Mystery Meat. It's called Joey's House of Hot Dish. And Joey is a character from actually that first one that you went through from Framed. He was actually in the Vinny's address book, is just like a name. And so we plucked that name out of there and gave him a whole story. And so once you have those settings in the story, then you can start to build on what the clues are. It's like, why would there be clues in this room? Why are you finding things that are going to allow you to escape? And it's easy to get caught up in, it's like, oh, it's a madman and he wants to play a game with you. That you can only do so many times. And so we, try to find more everyday type situations like a restaurant or an office or a school, versus like you had said, that kind of a take on like Mission Impossible, or, it's a disease spreading or something like that. So we try to keep ours more kind of grounded in sort of a reality, and it helps that we're in an empty office space, and that, you can kind of the surroundings. We don't have to make Egyptian tombs or things like that within that space to try to create this sort of visual fantasy.
That's making me think of Legends of the Hidden Temple for some reason, which would be probably far out of the budget to do. Yeah. Are these rooms that you have to then refresh from time to time? Like, do you retire a setup after a period of time because no one, people who like doing these escape rooms aren't using that anymore, or maybe too many people have done it, so like too many people are talking about how you pass the room?
Yeah, absolutely. So ours tend to have kind of a life expectancy of 2 years, is what we found. That our first one, Framed, that was about 2 years old when we retired it, and the Will as well. When we first opened, we thought, like every 6 months we're going to change it out. Well, quickly discovered that was a ridiculous sort of thing. Just the budget alone, to build the stuff, the time it takes to, put it all together, come up with it, test it, that was not going to happen. It takes, 6 months to make one. And so, yeah, try to keep them simple. So we do keep our budget down. So we can feel okay about switching it out, versus like, oh, wow, we dumped all this money into this really crazy movie quality set. But the games are kind of mediocre and everybody in town has played it. So, but we spent so much money, we got to keep it. Now we try to keep them lean, and so we can switch them out, pretty often.
Are you like a master of shopping at garage sales?
Oh my
I
God.
mean, do you wave your hands over a table and then find, it's like a one of those a water divining sticks,
Yeah.
and you're like, yep, this is it. This trapper keeper is the next room.
Yeah, at garage sales, thrift stores. I've learned how to mine thrift stores like you wouldn't believe, and I have found the darkest corners of Amazon. There is some crazy stuff on Amazon that, unless you're specifically looking for it, you don't know that it's there. Switches and all sorts of crazy electronics. I'm surprised I not being watched by the government for the number of envelopes I get from China with just like big stickers with just Chinese writing all over it, and then my name on there. So I have no idea what they say.
Have you ever been to a store in St. Paul called the Axe Man?
No,
Oh, fish. Okay. Put this on your list next time you're in the Twin Cities. So the Axe Man is a surplus store that specializes in the what the hell. So not only can you buy actual World War II era gas masks for like $5 a pop, but you can buy posters of that dog that sold beer, the Mackenzie dog. They've got like 1,000 of those.
Yeah.
And then you'll turn a corner and you'll have every kind of diode and electronic you've ever seen. They've got boards to the Apple Lisa that you can buy for 10 cents a piece. Beakers. It is the most amazing store. We used to compete in a thing called the 48-hour film project. And when we did one in the cities, that would be one of our stops right away, because we would base off of what props we could get for what movie we were getting. So trust me, the Axeman in St. Paul, worth your time. Maybe carve out 2 hours, because that store has got so much stuff in it.
Why have I never heard of this place? This is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty iconic too. A lot of people go there and just check out what's going on. I mean, and the weird thing is 1 week they might have an entire rain barrel full of skateboard wheels, and the next week you walk in there and they have got like half of the set from the Drew Carey show that they bought and is for sale.
Wow.
Yeah, weird, wild stuff. Very, very cool. So when you open that one, let me know, and I'll make sure to make a reservation for the opening weekend.
Awesome. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about some horror stories of owning an escape room, because I imagine there are people who go in there and they get frustrated and like try and almost trash the place a little.
So we've come up with some names for certain people. You talked about like you can't have so many alphas in a room. Yeah, there's levels of. I equate it to like when people drink and they get past that threshold of like just really losing your inhibitions before you get like sloppy drunk, but like that real you comes out, sort of thing. And that's what we see. That's what an escape room does. It puts you back in your like basic sort of lizard mind state, and so you get those that like might just curl up in the corner of a room, or just this rage beast comes out and they just like Kool-Aid man their way through the whole thing. What we've learned is that if something isn't supposed to move, it better not wiggle at all, or it's coming off of whatever it's attached to. And if it is supposed to move, it better move easily, because it's going. In our second room that we made the will, we had this dresser, and on the dresser was a vase with a key in it. Now you couldn't reach your hand in there. You had to actually there's an antenna on the radio with a magnet on the end of it, and there's some clues to kind of get you there. But you take the antenna magnet, stick it down the vase, pull the key out. Well, the vase was attached to the dresser. We didn't realize how much we would have to attach it. Like I've put like 4 bolts in the thing, and then found out that, people are just going to pick up the entire dresser and tip it over to get the key out. Because that's what we had in mind when we made that clue, is that you're going to lift entire pieces of furniture to get a key. But yeah, just breaking things. They just lose their minds. It's kind of incredible. Yeah, I want to do like a sociological study on the different sort of archetypes that show up in the room, and give them names and everything, and use it as a scientific evaluation for how people think and act.
I think that is just, it's amazing to me to like watch people who are ultra competitive engage
Mm-hmm.
in an escape room, because like, for example, like I could never be in the same room with Jason Jacobson in an escape room, because that dude is maybe the fiercest competitor I've ever met in my life, and I would be afraid to follow a MacGuffin and waste 5 precious minutes.
Right. You would pay for that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But at the same time, I also don't want to be the person that everybody looks to in the room, right?
Mhm.
Like in the group I was with, I noticed that there were 2 people who were just kind of waiting. Like they were
Mhm.
just like, well, I mean, you guys sound like you guys know what you're doing, so you just keep. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
You are trying to help me find,
You have to actively participate.
the clue. Get your rear end off of that couch. That couch might
Mhm.
be a clue.
Yeah. Their families are interesting. They're either going to do really well or really poorly, and fight. Oh my God. So, it's usually like you see the family dynamic come out really quickly, in who kind of takes lead in things, and like trust levels, where you'll have like siblings off to the side saying like, oh my God, dad doesn't know what he's talking about. Why is he even doing that? No, dad just solved everything. Maybe you should listen to dad once in a while. Or
How are you monitoring everything, Fish? Are you guys like, do you have like a camera in the sky, like
camera,
the FBI watching everything?
camera and audio in every room, so we can see and hear everything, which is hilarious when people forget that and start saying things. And we'll have like, especially bachelorette parties are hilarious because there's always some sort of infighting going on. We discovered, and we'll have 2 girls in one room talking about one of the other bridesmaids in the other room, and I'm hearing the whole conversation. and then afterwards, then they realize it, and they're like, "Oh, hey, maybe sorry about that, but things we were saying." But it's good stuff.
I imagine that you probably could fill hours of America's Funniest Home Videos just with some of the stuff. Is it a recording, or does it end up getting purged pretty quickly?
Yeah, we don't record anything. We're just watching all live. People have asked too. It's like, oh, can we get a recording of that? Well, then it kind of gives, you're going to want to show that to people, and then that gives it away. But we've talked about setting up some cameras and maybe areas that might not give anything away, like kind of reaction areas, because we always have a surprise of some sort in there. We want to make you poop your pants just a little bit. So if you've come in and you leave with a tiny little brown streak, awesome. You've had a really good time. And so we almost like on a roller coaster, that where the big drop, and they have that flash of a camera, and then you get your picture at the end of it. We want to do something like that, or they catch the surprise face as you poop your pants a little bit.
I like that your metric for having a good time is having dirty trousers.
Okay, well, let's talk bathrooms real quick. That has got to be the Achilles heel to the escape room, is someone who's like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom.
It is. So we are pretty strict about that. There's other escape rooms that are like, oh, here's the button that you hit to open the door so you can come and go as you please. That's not us. Now, we don't want to have to clean up anything. So if it's an emergency, of course, we're going to let you out. If you're pregnant, and if you have some sort of irritable bowel syndrome or something, give us the high sign. All right, we're going to let you out. But yeah, it's once you're in there, you're in there. We don't offer that other than in case of emergencies, sort of thing. And so highly encourage everybody to use the toilet before going in the room. But even so, some people like save it up before when they get there. I don't know. Guy walked out. Yeah, that's not a room anybody's going to want to escape into. Like, God, why did you do that here?
Have you thought about doing an escape room that is like men's room themed?
We're afraid, that people would just use that toilet in there sort of thing. It'd be a prop and we'd be cleaning that out constantly. Um, no, farting in the room too. Some people think that's the funniest thing in the world. We've had to let rooms air out for a while before we could go in there. Um, one smelled like sour milk so bad. I don't know what it was that they ate that day, but it was unhealthy and they should really get checked out.
My favorite
It
line.
sounds like they were having a great time, really, by your
By my
metrics.
standard, I know. I was super happy for them, but it ruined my day.
One of my favorite things to tell someone is when they've got a stinky fart is to go to the doctor. You need to go see a doctor about that. Okay, so I'm also curious to know a little bit about. Have you ever tried to scrub the internet and find out if people are giving away the secrets to your escape room?
They're not. So that has not that I know of. That's never really been an issue. We were afraid it might be, but what we found out is like most people that are coming in don't want to know. They're like, I want to do this. I don't want any help. Because we give hints. And in the beginning, it's like, no hints. We're not taking any hints. Our hints cost a minute. So if you ask for a hint, you lose a minute of time, but you might save 10 minutes by asking for it. So people really don't want to know when they come in, and others that have been through it, they don't want to share. They don't want to make it any easier for anybody else. So that problem kind of worked itself out. Really hasn't been an issue.
Do you ever have a repeat customer who wants to go in and try and solve it when they've lost it?
Yes. Yeah. So we get that. What is funny is you are so amped up a lot of the time in those situations, you don't remember half of the stuff that you did. And so they'll come back and fail again. Other times too, it's like what we love too is the ones that they're probably spent an hour too long at the bar before they came in. And we had one guy that we nicknamed Wobbles because that's all he did. He just stood in the middle of the floor and just kind of like putting bets on how far we go one way. It was like the Michael Jackson move, when he kind of shifted back and forth. That's all he did the whole time. He just pointed shit too. He's like, it's a garbage can. It's look at the drawer. It's a drawer over there. Another guy was so incredibly high that he solved the same lock twice. He got it open and was like, hey, look, hey, everybody got no one was listening. And so he just kind of absently closed it again and then walked away and then came back later and did it again. And he was just as proud of himself.
I can see that so vividly in my mind right now.
Yeah. It's good fun.
Okay. So, it obviously has been pretty popular for two specific groups that I can think of. One is the celebration group. So whether it's a bachelorette party or a birthday, what have you, those are big. And then I see a lot of companies use it as team building as well.
Yes. Yeah. The team building ones are fun. I love working with groups that, they're just excited to get out of the office a lot of the times. And, whether it's bowling or an escape room or just going out to do something. But then when they get into an escape room and you get these sort of shift of power where it's like in a more corporate office sort of setting, you have that, I need to, straightforward look ahead, black and white, that sort of thing. But then those that have been kind of, maybe stifled by that a little bit are allowed to just let free, because you cannot have a black and white sort of mindset going into an escape room. And so these people that might not necessarily shine in the corporate setting are just like Vikings in there. And it's awesome because then like the whatever the manager is just not doing anything. And,
right. I mean, it's an equalizer,
new guy
right?
Joe pops in and he's like, look, I did this and this and this and this. Holy crap. Yeah. It's a total equalizer.
I love the fact, in improv, we talk about status, and in instant way you can bring comedy, which is a form of tension. Essentially, laughter is a release of tension, is to swap status. And so when you walk into that and it's, you've got Mark, who's been just riding everyone for a month and a half about a quarterly report. And now Mark is useless in this room because he just doesn't get it. But Sheila from accounting, oh man, she thrives at this because she loves escape rooms. And so all of a sudden, the person who was at the bottom of, of the food chain is now moved to the top.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I did an escape room camp for fifth graders one summer, and they had to build their own escape room. It was like 20 kids, and they put together an escape room that they could use at the school. And what was crazy is I had all these different levels of kind of performance and students that needed some extra help and students that were like doing really, really well in school. And the dynamic shift in that when they got into the escape room, into a different atmosphere and a different way of learning and thinking, totally flopped that. So the students that would do really good in that sit at your desk, look at a book kind of atmosphere, weren't really catching on in building this room. The ones that had a lot of problems during the year and that I was told I might have to, kind of keep an eye on, pay extra attention to, they might need some additional assistance, we're rocking it out. They were coming up with just these amazing clues and puzzles and just having a blast. And so, yeah, it's a different way of thinking. And, I was diagnosed as an adult with ADD, and I attribute a lot of my ability to build these rooms to that, because I don't think in a linear way. It's I'm all over the board. So being able to build something like that or think in that atmosphere is really it's easy for me. Whereas others, it's like how can you come up with this network of stuff that all connects together? And like how I see it.
So when you're working on a room, is it just a wall full of Post-it notes? Is it a bunch of strings that tie to each other and then branches off? I mean, what is the paperwork aspect of the planning look like?
It's a lot of sketching. So I'm a visual thinker. I like to sketch everything out. So I have all these crazy little drawings of stuff, and yeah, I mean, it's you hang it up, or I get a giant sheet of paper and start connecting with arrows. Really, the best way to build a room for me is to work backwards. So I start with that end goal of getting out, because you can always keep adding on another layer to it of how it starts. And so it's like, okay, I have a key that I need to get out. How did I get to that key? Well, I had to do this thing before that. How did I get to that thing? Well, I have this piece of paper over here that matches this, thing on the wall over there. How did I discover that thing? Oh, I had to hold hands with somebody or whatever. I had to do a little dance, and that made that drop out of the ceiling, sort of thing. So it's a backwards process to because you can always add more. It's harder to take stuff away than it is to add to it. So that's what we do when we build our rooms. We get it to a point where we think, okay, this is going to be enough for an hour time. And then we run people through it and say, they're all solving it in like 40 minutes. We need to add more things. But if not everybody's getting out within that hour, it's really tough to say, okay, what are we going to start taking away in order to make it almost easier? So I'd rather make it harder than easier.
Well, but that's the point, right? People are looking for a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it's hard because people want something that is challenging them, but they also, deep down, everyone wants to win.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal, is you want to win, at least, when it comes down to lizard brain.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that there is something about losing in an escape room that is just as valuable as winning.
We see the losers come back faster than the winners.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, sometimes they'll book the same day. They'll like not get out, and then they'll come and they'll book immediately again.
And see, isn't that great? Because it's showing that like they still have that desire, right? They have that desire to win, but also they're not going to stop. They're not. It's all about determination and continuing on, and bully my good man, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, because even if they haven't gotten out, they've solved things within the room, and they've gotten those hits of dopamine. And I went to a conference one time that talked about all the chemical reactions that happen in your head while you're in an escape room. What happens when you solve a lock and that lock opens? It's similar to uh, like getting a high. It's like drugs. So rooms are actually somewhat addictive because you want to feel that again. And with the winning part of it too, it's like they want to win, but they don't want to be given the win.
Yeah.
So what we do too is we make sure that if somebody's stuck and they ask for a hint, the worst thing you can ever do is tell them the answer. That just kills the room, deflate. I mean, you've never seen energy get sucked out of anything fun so fast as to giving the answer. And it's awful. I mean, there's like no coming back from that. So even if it's like, it's the number next to 2, but not 1. And it's, as long as you don't say 3, they're fine. People need to solve it on their own. And they're okay if they don't win, but you cannot give them the win.
Do you ever rank the rooms by difficulty? Like if it's your first time here, you should probably try one of these 2 and not one of these 3.
Not really. We had thought about that from the beginning. Other places do that, but I don't know how they're, determining those numbers. Because what we find is that each room has different types of puzzles in it. So just because you do well in one doesn't mean you're going to do well in another. It might be just a different way of thinking, a different way, different types of puzzles sort of thing. One might be more where you have to think about how things connect with each other. Another one might be more mechanical. And so what we do is we only go by success rates, and we try to keep our success rates between 30 and 40%. Sometimes they creep up a little higher, but that usually tells us, okay, we might need to add something to the room. But as long as it's within that, winning. So if you win and the room has like a 33% success rate, that really means something. It's like, wow, you did something really good. Only 33% of the groups that come through succeed in here. If if we have like a success rate of like 85% or 90% and you don't get out, you feel like a dumbass. It's like 90% of people get out of here and I didn't do it. Man. So we want it hard enough where it's a challenge, but not so hard that you're not going to feel like you can do it. So that's 33, kind of 35%, give or take 5 tends to be kind of the sweet spot for that.
Do you have any storylines that are particular favorites?
It's kind of all over the board. Some people really like the will. That was our second room, and you were there for to try to find your great aunt's will. She died, and your crooked cousin is looking for the will too, and you're in there. But as you're there, you find out that your aunt was like the leader of the CIA organization. She was a super spy sort of thing, which leads to our other room, cats. But people really like that one. That one had a big bed that flipped over. I think a lot of the people, more so than the stories, they like some of the elements in the room, like just kind of their favorite reveals. So that one, yeah, we had this bed that I built that you had to flip it over, and it turned it kind of like a tilt table maze. And in order to flip it, you had to poke the old lady's cane through the foot of her bed and trigger this switch. we that's when we decided we needed to install a buzzer, because one time somebody was standing on the bed and somebody flipped the switch, and I wasn't quick enough to get there, and the bed ate them. Oh. And that was terrifying, because I was like, oh God, now I'm getting sued. It's all done. But they were laughing. I thought it was funny. Luckily, I kind of knew them. So yeah, quickly after that, we developed the loudest buzzer you will ever hear to tell people not to stand on furniture.
What about, so obviously they're incredibly complex builds that you're having to put together. Mm-hmm. But do you ever have people say like, well, yeah, couldn't you just bring this to my company Christmas party? We're all going to be at the Holiday Inn. Couldn't you just figure out something that we could do there?
Oh, for sure. Before the pandemic hit, I had a couple of post proms. There was a big event, this banking event in Bismarck that I was going to go to, and I didn't have anything built for it. They asked if I could come and do something, and it's like, yeah, sure, I'll figure it out. So I was going to build some portable type devices. But yeah, people just don't really understand the level of work that goes into it. But we are working on some portable options. Thing is, it's not the same as going into a room, and that immersive experience just isn't quite there. But you still get that kind of release of brain chemicals by opening things, and you have a good time that way.
Do people occasionally confuse this with like a murder mystery?
Sometimes they'll say, "Is it kind of like that?" If they've never tried it before, like, well, sort of. You're looking for clues. A lot of people assume it's going to be scary. They think that there's going to be stuff jumping out on them all the time, and based on my poop in your pants, level of success, I don't blame them. But no, we try to keep things, maybe a little jump, a startle here and there, but nothing ever really scary. We'd love to do a scary room, but I just don't know that we'd have the volume of people that want to go in there, based on those that are freaked out just going into a regular room. Then you get the claustrophobic ones who are like, oh my God, I can't do it. I'm too claustrophobic to go in there. Like, well, can you go to the bathroom with the door closed? You'll be fine. You'll do all right. Pretty sure.
I hope at one point you do write a book called like the pants pooping metric, a guide to business success.
Yes, the brown streak or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. Oh man, I mean, really, in all honesty, Fish, this could be the next big thing. You could tour around the country talking to companies, being like, "Does Target achieve the brown streak?"
the brown metric. That's great.
So
yeah, it's. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I find it so fascinating, and what a lot of fun. Obviously, you got to follow a passion. And to find a passion while you'd been in advertising for a long time. Like I said, you're a very well-known name. And so, to leave that behind to go for something, it must have, that moment that you did that first escape room really must have been a watershed aha moment for you.
It was, yeah. It was crazy because, after you've been in advertising, it's such a fun job, coming up with creative campaigns and taking what the client wants to do and turning it into something that people are going to relate to and everything. A lot of what I was doing was like building up to the moment of making escape rooms. It's weird. It's like I took so much that I learned in advertising and applied it to escape rooms. The biggest difference is that when people go through an escape room, win or lose, they come out happy for 99.9% of the time. On the other hand, in advertising, the client always wants to change something. And so it's like, I'm putting all of this like time and just, blood, sweat, tears sort of thing into creating something. And I'm getting nothing but positive feedback from the escape room because there's no sort of, expectation that they have to evaluate it. They're just there to be entertained. They're there to forget about stuff. They're there to, just be challenged. Whereas on the advertising side, that same level of energy can just be questioned constantly, and it can wear you down after a while. And so it was a huge moment. One of the first groups, I think it was like second or third group that went through the escape room, came out, and I've never seen people so excited to walk through a door. And I said, "Oh my God, good job, you guys." And one of the girls in the room turned, she goes, "No, good job, you." I was like, wow, that was intense, but thanks. And that was like really a moment where I was like, man, this is like, I could do this for a long time. So, no, I was at this place where like, I was just tired of advertising because I'd done so many of the same things. I was like, I think I was working at my 20th bank and doing some stuff for them. And it was great. I mean, they were loving what I was doing. But I didn't have that it's the ADD in me. I was like, oh, it's another thing. It's the same thing, and I'm doing that again. Where this is just, it's different every time people walk through the door. I don't know if they're going to get out or not. I can't. We've quit trying to guess if somebody's going to get out or not. The ones like I kind of talked earlier, that like we've had police detectives, doctors, lawyers, really well learned people go in and fail miserably because they don't have that sort of seeing the whole picture, or seeing things not for what they are or what they're supposed to be. And then you get people that you wouldn't expect to really just bloom in there. It's like you get somebody that you might typically, more of a stereotypical look at, like some farmers coming in or something. It's like, oh, wow, what are they going to do? That's what they do every day, is they come up with novel solutions to things based on what they have at their disposal. That's right. I grew up on a farm. That's how it works. And they do amazingly well. And so you never know.
Let me pitch you an idea for an escape room real quick, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the deal. I'm going to give you the idea, and then you tell me how this thing ends, okay?
Okay.
So let's have some creative juices flow in this one, okay?
I love it.
It is the love nest of the head of sanitation in a fictional large city, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the lover has disappeared, and everyone suspects this guy, but there's been nothing to pin it on. You happen to be the group that has been charged with cleaning this place out because your philanthropic group has decided to purchase this apartment building. Once you get in there, it is clear that this woman is not dead, but there are clues to where she may be hidden. And again, he's the head of sanitation.
Ooh.
So as you poke around this room, you find out a lot of stuff, and then it turns out her great-grandmother is Eleanor Roosevelt. How does this end, Fish?
A lot of twists and turns in that one.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. Wait, when do we find out about Eleanor Roosevelt?
Oh, this is like a 3/4. Like,
okay.
And you find out because there's a book in there. Like, you find a book, and it says, "To my great-granddaughter, love Eleanor."
How does this end? Oh my God. Well, there's got to be a room. So the head of sanitation, right?
Right.
I don't know. He's probably has to have some sort of like garbage compactor room, like in Star Wars, where you're stuck in there and the walls are closing somehow. And I don't know why he has that. Yeah, he takes his work home with him, I guess. Maybe that's what split them up, or why they think she's missing, is because she was sick of him bringing his work home. And he's like, "Nah, she left. That's screw her. She doesn't. She's going to miss out on my sanitation fortunes. And she only married me for my money. But in order to do that, I have to work all the time. So I'm bringing home work with me." And she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth because of the Roosevelt tie. And then it turns out, no, yes, she didn't leave. Maybe he didn't know about the Roosevelt thing. And so he's after something there. Man, I got to write this one down. This is good stuff.
Yep. I feel like if I was embarking on this room, the fact that there's, he's the head of sanitation, I'd be like, if this is trash themed, it's all about the garbage.
That's right.
But it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be all about the garbage.
No.
Follow the trash. Follow the trash.
Always follow the trash.
Instead of follow the money, follow the trash. And maybe it's the fact that like they're historically have been mafia ties to waste management, but
right. Yeah.
I always feel like the head of sanitation, man, they've got secrets. They've got
do
stuff
have
to hide.
secrets. They do.
Well, and if this is his love nest, that tells me that he actually has an actual family that is unaware of this place, and that this is the place that he keeps on the side for his girlfriend.
That's a good thought. That's the second part. That's a new room right there. Or, back
So
in
maybe
his
there's like a
actual home.
family portrait somewhere that it's like hidden behind
Right.
a key.
Fish, I know that this would be ambitious, but like, have you guys ever sketched out ideas for like one room that leads into another room, which leads into another room?
I would love to do that. I want to do one where it's like multiple hours and you can play it in chunks, or you can play it for a full day sort of thing. Or you can, go in, see how far you can get in an hour, then you book another hour another time, start where you left off and keep going sort of deal. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. I envision like this long building with just like room after room after room after room, and once you get to the next door, keep going sort of thing.
Yeah, I think everyone loves mystery. Everyone loves problem solving. I think it's one of the reasons why people are so obsessed with true crime right now.
Oh yeah,
is because people like to figure out what it is, and as they watch a documentary like The Staircase, you find yourself questioning, okay, what do I believe in this situation? And so, like, could you imagine, like, in a perfect world where someone gives you like an old hotel or something like that and says, okay, you can have this for a month and figure out how this goes, and it is a whole, maybe after you solve these two rooms, you get into, it leads into a larger room where you're competing against other teams to get out of this larger room as well. I mean, your imagination can just fly anywhere you want.
Well, there's that motel on Highway 10. Is it by Glendon? Like Starlight or something. I want that so bad. I want to buy that motel. Just like each room is its own mystery. What happened in room, 113 or something like that.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Fish, as we kind of wind this thing down a little bit, can we just talk kind of briefly about that eye that you developed in the advertising world, and sort of, I'm always curious when someone who was in advertising observes and takes in other advertising, how it can be kind of, like you've seen behind the curtain. Is it hard for you to look at a billboard, or is it hard for you to watch a commercial and be objective about it?
Well, I don't know. I see a lot of things that sort of as I was kind of getting out, because I'm still doing freelance stuff here and there occasionally. That's the fun part of this now, is that I can more pick and choose what I work on. But what I see a lot now is, and I think back to when I first started, like the little trends that would pop up. And it's like so easy to grab onto those, because it's like, oh yeah, let's do that thing that I saw in this other commercial that another commercial did it before that, and just want to do that stuff because it's easy and maybe it's kind of fun, whatever. But it all blends together, and so that I think that's what bugs me most, is like seeing and almost, I don't want to assume, but I'm guessing it's younger creatives that just really haven't figured it out yet, that you don't have to follow those trends and make everything the same, because you don't stand out then. And so a lot, along those lines, that's why, like in the escape room too, like trying to avoid some of those trends that happen. And it's like, okay, how can we take something and how do we keep this fresh? How do we keep changing up what we're delivering to people with there's still sort of an expectation there of what they're coming into, but we've twisted it just enough so it's still a surprise in the end. And that's what advertising is all about too. It's like, you don't want to make something so different that it's foreign. You want there to be a certain comfort level of, oh, I know what I'm getting into, but oh my God, that was a different way to end it. That is amazing, sort of thing. So that's what that's how I base my sort of opinions on things. Is somebody, are they following a trend enough where it's a comfort, but they've twisted it enough where it's still a surprise and it's novel?
Fish, I've always wanted to ask you this. How many campaigns do you think you've designed that are centered around hand puppets?
Not enough. I need to make more puppet. I want to actually. I'm kicking around a puppet themed room at the escape room where that's more of a creepy one. Or it's like you go into the puppet maker's room and it's just filled with creepy puppets that may or may not talk to you. That was one of my favorite things ever. Was Tucker? Were you there when we were doing those? I can't remember.
For which campaign?
For the Bob stuff.
Yeah, I was there for a little bit. I think it was you had already developed it and it was already on the air.
Yeah.
But yeah,
no, I still have Bob. He's in my garage right now in a box. That was,
in your garage in a box. See, that could be a room too.
It's right.
I feel like Fish's garage would be like the name of like a kid's Saturday morning puppet show. Welcome to Fish's garage.
I feel like Fish, your friends and family are sick and tired of you probably being like, "Oh, this would make a great room." You're like, not everything's gonna make a great escape room, Fish.
Right. Kind of, yeah. Actually, I get a lot of, you should put this in an escape room. Oh, you should put that in an escape room. And yeah, there's some like really good ideas that come out of random people's mouths, especially when I'm wearing my shirt around town. Like, first I'll get a question: is that any fun? Yeah, I like to think so. I hope so. But
it's
then
not just like a radio station T-shirt.
Yeah, and then they'll see the shirt and say, "Oh, I've got this great idea for an escape room." I kind of feel like it's you're like a movie producer or something that they find out. It's like, I got the script I want you to read. Take a look at this thing. But yeah, puppet themed room. I think.
I mean,
sorry, my mind's wandering now.
I would immediately go into a puppet themed room, like no questions asked. Like that sounds like a little slice of heaven to me. So, Fish, as we kind of wind this thing up, I know obviously the pandemic has probably drastically changed your business, and it's still an ongoing process to figure out what the future is going to be. But if people are interested and they want to check it out, how can they find you online?
So we are at fargoescaperoom.com. We're the one with the key. And also we're on Facebook. We do all of our bookings online. People can call. I mean, if they're having troubles, anything like that, they can certainly call, but we do direct them to online first to do their bookings. So they can see all of our available rooms that they can self-book. But, if we have somebody working and we're open and we don't even have to be open. If we don't have another room booked and somebody's available to work, we'll book a room just about any time. So yeah, we do a lot of custom bookings.
I think that's what people want, right? They're like, I want to escape from a room on my own time.
Right, exactly.
That's awesome. Fish, what a great conversation. So much fun. I want to do an escape room ASAP. I feel like right now, in fact, I want to race Tucker and see which one of us does it fastest.
I think you should. I think that's great.
Tucker, who would be
Tucker,
on your team?
JJ.
Yeah, right.
Who would be on my team?
Yeah, who would you put on your escape room team?
I'd probably bring Jason Jacobson for the competitive factor.
Mm-hmm.
I'd bring Mike Rezel and Christina Johnson because they're both crafty and wily. And I think the four of us could probably take down who I think I already know is on your team, JJ.
Who do you think is on my team?
I think you've got Phil Goodell.
Nope.
I think you've got Britta Nelson.
Nope.
I think you've got your wife.
Nope. Oh God, that would be awful.
And I think you've got Amy Anderson. In fact, I think that's exactly the team you've had before do an escape room.
No, actually, I was with Raul and Ben Hamilton, Doug Hamilton, Sandy Buttweiler. It was a pretty eclectic group of people, if I'm going to be honest. And we won. We won with like a minute and a half left.
I think I was there when you guys went through. I'm pretty sure.
I think you were. And I think the thing that we thought at the end was like, oh man, thank God we did it. And once you get down to that last 5 minutes, every choice you're just amping it up. You talk about that rush that you get from it.
Yeah.
I almost feel like if I solved it and had 15 minutes left, I wouldn't be as proud, and that sounds weird, but I'm glad we went down to the wire on it.
Yeah, and we try to make the rooms that way too. So if you get out, there's like maybe 5 minutes left. If you don't get out, if say you had like another 5, you might have done it, sort of thing. So
yeah,
we like the pressure.
Why don't you offer people the ability to like buy an extra 15 minutes for double the booking price.
We would love to, but then we have other rooms booked after them.
It's like microtransactions in apps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, and you tell that
in-room purchases.
Fish, I'm not going to tell you how to do your business because it's obviously successful, and I would probably drive it into the ground. It's why you do what you do, and I do what I do. Fish, thank you so much for the time. This has just been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. I always thought it would be funny if I did an escape room, but every time I got a clue right, I took off a garment of clothing and see how long it was until they just opened the door.